Hello, everybody. My name is Melvin Thomas with the Office of Minority and Women Inclusion. I am our Strategic Engagement Officer, and today I'd like to welcome everybody to today's session. I will note that we are going to be recording this session, and we'll start that recording in just a second, where I'll reintroduce myself, and we'll give everyone just another minute to join us.
This meeting is being recorded.
Hello again, everyone. My name is Melvin Thomas. I work in the Office of Minority and Women Inclusion as our Strategic Engagement Officer. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. We're going to be starting our presentation and our informational session in just a minute. But as just a matter of housekeeping, I do want to point out a few features of our WebEx production today to help you maximize your experience. The first is you'll notice on the left-hand side of the screen, there'll be a presentation, and above that, there'll be some icons in order for you to zoom in and zoom out. If you're having any difficulty in the session being able to see and read the screen, I welcome you to use the amplification zoom in or zoom out button in order to adjust the screen to meet your needs. In addition to that, on the lower left-hand side of the screen, you'll see a little icon that says CC. That's our closed caption feature. If it is easier for you to follow the narration, feel free to click on that button and the script that we will be using will be displayed on the bottom of the screen. Know that we are using AI technology, so it isn't perfect, but it is really close. All right. Now that we've given additional guests the opportunity to come in, I'm really excited to kick off our event today. I do want to start with our agency disclosure. The Securities and Exchange Commission disclaims responsibility for any private publication statements of any SEC employee or commissioner. This presentation expresses the author's views and does not necessarily reflect on those of the commission, the commissioners, or members of the staff. Now, I know that we have many individuals joining us from across the country, and if you feel comfortable, feel free in the chat box, which is a feature on the bottom right-hand side of the screen, to share where you're dialing in from. It's always nice to know where our team is dialing in from to just get a sense of the representation on this call. In today's session, we'll be doing a few different things, but we'll start off with a quick overview of the SEC and the Office of Minority and Women Inclusion, just to lay some foundational knowledge on the table. Then we're actually going to do a deep dive into the Division of Corporation Finance, and the director of that division, Renee Jones, will be kicking off that session. We'll then slide in with our moderator, Cecily, to talk a little bit more about the division, job opportunities, and then how to apply for jobs within the division and at the SEC. And then we'll spend about 50% of our time really in panel format, where you'll be hearing from employees of the Division of Corporation Finance, hearing about their experiences, how they were led to an opportunity here at the SEC, and kind of what their career path as a whole looked like. And then if there are any Q&A, I welcome anyone throughout the course of the presentation to go ahead and put that into the chat. You can either send it directly to me by clicking on the to button and then selecting my name, Melvin Thomas, or you're welcome to send it to everyone. I'll be monitoring the chat throughout the entirety of the presentation. All right, now that we've covered what we'll be covering today, I want to jump and give you an overview of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Just as a quick refresher, because I know many people are familiar with the organization, the SEC protects investors, maintains fair and orderly effective markets, and facilitates capital formation. The SEC strives to promote a market environment that is worthy of the public's trust. Our headquarters is in Washington, D.C., but we do have 11 regional offices, which you'll see here at the bottom of the screen. Feel free to use the amplification buttons to be able to zoom in on this org chart if you're interested. In addition to that, the SEC is led by a total of 5 commissioners and 1 chair. Our current chair is Gary Gensler. We also have 6 divisions and then about 26 different offices, which you'll see on this org chart. The SEC is in a full stage of hiring right now, so there are opportunities in many of our offices, and you're always welcome Check out those opportunities on our SEC careers page. Today, we're going to be highlighting one division that is actively hiring, and that's the Division of Corporation Finance. But before we jump there, Corporation Finance has partnered with my office, the Office of Minority and Women Inclusion. We serve as the leadership and voice for guidance as it relates to all things diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility for the SEC. Our goal is to make sure that our workforce, our supplier diversity efforts, and our efforts to influence and support our regulated entities are one that supports the advancement of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility within financial services and within our workforce. If you'd like to learn more about the OMWI office and the work that we do, we welcome you to go to the SEC page and find our OMWI office, which is really sec.gov/OMWI. Now that I've had the opportunity to tell you a little bit about the SEC, laying that foundation, and about my office, the Office of Minority and Women Inclusion, I get the distinct pleasure of introducing the Director of the Division of Corporation Finance, Renee Jones. She'll be joining me right now on the stage. Welcome, Renee. I'll go ahead and pass off the presentation to you.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that introduction and for the background information. So first up, hello, everybody. It's really a pleasure to be here virtually with all of you today so that I can talk about the Division of Corporation Finance. And my remarks are going to be relatively brief, but I want to make sure I took the time to introduce myself and then to share with you why I love working at the SEC, and particularly, of course, in the Division of Corporation Finance. So I was named Director of the Division of Corporation Finance about 1 year ago today. And before I joined the SEC, I spent some time in private practice, but most recently I was a professor at Boston College Law School. And the opportunity to work at the SEC has been an incredible opportunity for me because it allows me to combine two of my passions, one of which is a longstanding interest in public policy and public service, and the other is a longstanding interest in securities and corporate law. And I get to combine those two interests in this amazing, incredible job. In CorpFin, what we're seeking to do is to support the Commission's overall mission, which is investor protection, capital formation, and promoting orderly and efficient markets. And we do that by helping to make sure that investors have the information that they need to make informed investment and voting decisions. And it's really hard to overstate the importance of this work. Good disclosure, which is what we strive to help provide, helps institutions and individuals make better capital allocation decisions. And these are decisions that are vital to millions of investors, and they're critically important to institutional investors, including those who are responsible for investing funds on behalf of people who are saving for their retirement. So every day, I get to come to work and think about how we can better protect investors and how we can better ensure that capital markets are working efficiently, and we tackle new and challenging issues every single day. So it's really an honor and a privilege for me to lead this organization. Another point I want to make clear to the participants today is that the diversity and inclusion are really important to the work that we do, and we value having staff with a diversity of backgrounds, experiences, and ideas. Having diverse experiences and backgrounds among our staff helps to keep us better informed, and we benefit from different perspectives of how we can best serve our mission. And I also want you all to know that Corporation Finance is a great place for you to come and bring to us your gifts and talents. And we also provide a great environment for personal and professional growth. And I'm excited to share that our office is doing hiring and will be continuing to do hiring across 2022. So I encourage you to keep in touch with us. And I know that our hiring committees would be really happy to see your applications. So that's a very thumbnail sketch of the work we do in the division, but I'm going to turn it over to Cicely Lamott, who's an associate director in CorpFin, and she's going to provide a little bit more information about how the division's organized, and she's also going to talk about current and potential vacancy announcements and the application process. And after Cicely talks, we're going to hear from our panel of talented staff members, so you can hear directly from them about their experience working in CorpFin. So I want to thank Cicely, I want to thank the staff who's participating in the panel for spreading the word and getting the word out about what a great place CorpFin is to work. And with that, I will introduce Cicely Lamott.
Great. Thank you, Renee. I really appreciate the introduction. I hope everyone can hear me well. Again, my name is Cicely Lamoth, and I am truly excited to be here with you today and really see the amount of interest that people have in the opportunities that we have here at the Division of Corporation Finance. We have well over 150 participants today, and so I'm very excited to virtually see all of you. Before I get started, I do want to just reiterate that the disclaimer that Melvin read at the beginning of the program continues to apply to my remarks and those of the panelists. So now I have been with the SEC for a little over 20 years now, and all of that time has been here in the Division of Corporation Finance. So I think it's pretty safe to say that I have loved working here. I enjoy the people, and I feel very strongly about the mission of the work that we do here. I'll spend a little bit more time on my background and career path later when we meet with the other CorpFin panelists. But for now, I really want to spend some time kind of going over the way our organization is structured, try to highlight the current openings that we have in the division, and then give an overview of the application process. So as Renee mentioned, CorpFin supports the SEC's mission by ensuring that investors are provided with material information in order to make informed investment and voting decisions. And we focus on this both when a company initially offers its securities to the public as well as on an ongoing basis. And our efforts in the Division of Corporation Finance are really concentrated on promoting fair and full disclosure. So how do we do this? As you can tell from the org chart, we tackle disclosure a number of different ways. First is through the disclosure program. Now, the majority of the attorneys and accountants in the Division of Corporation Finance are actually part of the disclosure program. As you can see, the disclosure program is primarily organized based on industry expertise, and you'll also see that there's some additional offices that actually support the work of the disclosure program in various ways. Moving to the other side of the org chart are our legal and policy offices, and they have a variety of disclosure focus areas as well. And they really drive our efforts in rulemaking, developing interpretive guidance, as well as providing assistance to companies in applying our rules and regulation. So our panelists today are really going to be able to give you the best picture of kind of what our work entails in both the disclosure program as well as the legal and policy offices. But I did want to set the stage and give just a high-level overview of the type of work in both, so you'll kind of get a better picture when you see what opportunities that we currently have available. So, the disclosure program is focused on the filing review process, and that's where I'll start to discuss a little bit about what we do. And that's where we selectively review filings to monitor and enhance compliance with our rules and regulations as well as accounting requirements. In carrying out the filing review process of companies, professionals in CorpFin, generally we work in teams. In some instances, there may be only accountants on a filing, and they might concentrate on just the financial statements and the related disclosures. In other instances, we might have a multidisciplinary approach where attorneys and accountants may cover a review. Now, generally, companies go through a review by us before they start their initial public offering. And once the companies are public, we continue to review these companies at least once every 3 years to comply with our mandate under Sarbanes-Oxley. We also selectively review other transactions, such as mergers, capital raising transactions by existing public companies, or information included in proxy statements, just to name a few things. As we work through the filing review, there might be instances then where we find that the disclosure might be materially deficient in either explanation or clarity. And that's when we begin a dialogue with the company through the comment process. Now, while much of our communications in the filing review process is through written comments, it is an iterative process, and it includes conference calls with the company, their executive leadership teams, law firms, accounting firms, and we also coordinate with other divisions within the SEC, such as trading and markets, enforcement, investment management as needed. And so through this process, you'll get to work on a variety of exciting issues and interact with some really talented professionals, both inside and outside the building. And so that's one of the things that's really kept me here for so long, being able to learn something new every single day and really work on a variety of different things. From the legal and policy office side, the division has specialized legal and accounting offices, and a large part of what they do is to support the 7 industry offices in the disclosure program on matters within their expertise. So as we come up with things that we note in the filing review process that are novel, unique, require a lot of judgment, we will do a lot of consultations with our legal, accounting, and other policy offices. Many of these policy offices also do rulemaking. And so if you think about it, it's our rules and regulations that are intended to elicit some of the fulsome disclosure that we're looking for companies. So these offices will make recommendations to the Commission on new rules as well as revisions to existing rules. In addition, the legal and policy offices really try to provide assistance when companies have questions about how these rules apply to their specific fact patterns, and then what information should actually be included in their commission filings. Sometimes we also get questions about what kind of information can be excluded, maybe because there's some type of novel issue with their transaction. And lastly, we provide broad interpretive guidance through these policy offices, and it covers a number of areas. This is where we frequently receive questions. And so the way that we'll do one-to-many communication, where we'll issue staff legal and accounting bulletins, compliance and disclosure interpretations, and you'll see where we try to make regular updates to our financial reporting manual. So now that you kind of have an overview about kind of how we carry out our mission and disclosure focus, let's talk a little bit about what opportunities are currently available. Right now, we have current postings that are up that are seeking experience as well as entry-level attorneys in our disclosure program. And these postings are up now. These opportunities at a minimum require a JD from an accredited law school if you want to come in at the law clerk position at the SK11. If you have passed and been admitted to the bar, then you might want to consider one of our attorney positions. If you've passed and been admitted to the bar and you have specialized work experience where you've worked with maybe the federal rules and regulations, or even more specifically, the 33 or 34 Act, then you should consider positions at the SK12 or SK13 level. Now, a couple things to kind of keep in mind. Many of the professionals in our legal and policy offices actually have at some point worked in the disclosure program. So that is something that, you know, is a possibility if you're interested in coming into the Division of Corporation Finance. There's definitely some ability to move around. As Renee mentioned also, we anticipate doing a great deal of hiring in the upcoming months. So as we bring in more people, we likely will open up some additional leadership positions as well, if that is of interest. So please just keep an eye out on our progress as we continue to update and monitor our hiring process. Now, if you're interested in opportunities with CorpFin, there are some important takeaways to remember. All positions in CorpFin are located in Washington, D.C. So yes, as you might know, the SEC does have regional offices all around the country, but CorpFin is only located in D.C. in our headquarters office. All of our open positions can be found on USA Jobs. So to apply to come work for us, you need to complete an online application, provide responses to an occupational questionnaire, and provide a resume. Sounds easy, but you'd be surprised. There sometimes can be a little bit of confusion with our application process. I have some tips that I usually like to share for people who are interested in applying just to make it easier. Let me caveat by saying I am not an OHR, so these are very, very unofficial tips. So one thing, if you don't already have an account or a profile on USA Jobs, go ahead and set one up now. That way, when you see a posting that interests you, that step is already done. Another useful tip is USA Jobs actually has a mechanism where you can actually save your search for either jobs with the SEC or jobs within the Division of Corporation Finance. And so then that way, when new job postings come up, you can be automatically notified about that. So you can set that up through USA Jobs. Another point to note, pay close attention to the closing dates of positions. Some postings are continuous and they're open for a long period of time, but others not so much. They may be only open for a short, finite period of time, and you don't want to miss out just because of a closing date and your ability to be able to post or respond to a posting. Another tip, tailor your resume. I cannot stress enough how important it is that your resume directly and explicitly shows how your experience matches up with the qualifications outlined in the posting. So for example, just think about the openings that we have now. It's an attorney position, but it's at various SK levels. And so if you are an experienced attorney, you want to make sure that any specialized experience that you have is directly and clearly stated in your resume. Part of that comes from the fact that we get a lot of applicants, and generally there's a screening process where we're trying to make sure that people meet the minimum qualifications that are set forth. That screening is not done by the hiring manager, and so they are looking to make sure that you have information in your resume that ties to the posting requirements. So that's very important to make sure that you're clear on that. And then lastly, be patient. Sometimes our process can take time, but we are more than happy to give updates if we can on how things are progressing. Okay, so that is all I kind of wanted to share in terms of background. I do want to make sure that you have time to talk to our panelists because I believe that is actually the best way to get a sense for what we do and what it's like to be in CorpFin. As part of that discussion, we're going to continue to focus on what is the day-to-day work and career path at the SEC, so feel free to put questions in the chat. And Melvin will be monitoring them as they come in, and we'll try to answer them before our session is over today. So thank you, and I think we're going to start welcoming our first panelist. Melvin, I think you can take down there we go. Okay. So I think everyone's going to be brought in at one at a time. Oh, I see everybody's joining. Great. First, for all of our panelists, I'd like to introduce them and then ask them to tell us a little bit about their background and their current position here with the SEC. First, I'll start with Jennifer Lopez Molina.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Jennifer Lopez. I'm an attorney in the Division of Corporation Finance, and I have been with the SEC for approximately 10 years. It's going to be 10 years this year. I'm currently a legal branch chief in the Disclosure Review Program in one of our industry offices, and I'm excited to be here.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. I'll turn it over to Alan Campbell to introduce himself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Alan. I am an attorney in the Office of Life Sciences, also within the Disclosure Review Program, and I joined a bit more recently. I think I just had my second anniversary about 6 weeks ago, so I joined in April 2020.
Great. Thanks, Alan. And last but not least, Jessica Barberick.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Barberick. I have worked at the SEC for over 15 years. And I'm actually an accountant. I am an associate chief accountant in our division's office of chief accountant. Thanks for having me.
Great. Thank you all for joining us today. I've had a chance to work with all of you in various iterations, and so I'm sure that people will really enjoy kind of hearing your perspectives today. So let's get started. Can you tell us a little bit about your career path? And what actually led you to the SEC? And I'll start with you, Jennifer.
Sure. So even though I'm an attorney here at the SEC, my professional career actually started as an accountant. I am a certified public accountant, and I worked as an auditor for one of the big four accounting firms, initially in their New York office, where I did audit or assurance services for companies in the financial service sector, and some of those were public companies. And then I also worked in their ethics and compliance office in the federal practice here in DC, which allowed me to work a little bit closely with attorneys in the group. But my main goal was always actually to go to law school. I just ended up doing accounting as an undergraduate degree because I thought I was good with numbers and I knew it had to do with rules and regulations. So it was somehow connected to the legal side. And I ended up wanting to get my CPA license. And at the time, right before graduation, some of the requirements changed. And I wanted to go to New York, where they were starting to require years of experience. And that's how I decided to work first before going to law school. Eventually, I ended up staying for longer than initially planned because I did enjoy the work. Maybe not so much the hours, but definitely I enjoyed the work. So after a couple of years, I decided to leave the Big Four accounting firm and go to law school. And I knew from the beginning that I wanted to find a legal path where I could still use my accounting skills. That's something that I didn't want to lose. So I was focused on business law or corporate law. Um, and through my time at, at the Big Four accounting firm, I was very aware of the importance of the SEC, and I had a lot of respect for the agency. So I was able to apply for an internship position while I was in law school. And my initial drive, again, was the ability to combine my accounting expertise and my legal background. But once I came to the SEC as an intern, what I quickly realized was that the attorneys were very passionate about the mission for behind the mission for the SEC, maintaining fair, orderly, and efficient markets, promoting capital formation, and protecting investors. And that is something that really sparked an interest for me. Being a law school student, I could get excited and found purpose. I could find purpose in classes like constitutional law, for example, but maybe not so much in some of my business law classes, even though I enjoy them. So that was sort of the missing spark that I needed and that I found through my internship at the SEC. And it was the driving force that led me to eventually come to the SEC.
That's awesome. I love the fact that you happen to be an accountant and a lawyer all at the same time. You're kind of the rare unicorn. We have a few of those throughout the division, but it does give quite a different perspective, which is great. Alan, what brought you here? What was your path?
Sure. So I graduated college during the Great Recession, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I worked for a couple of years. Unlike Jennifer, my work did not touch on the SEC whatsoever. After a couple of years, I decided to go back to law school and get a law degree. Based on my first couple of years of law school, I was pretty sure that I didn't want to be a litigator. Unlike you, Jennifer, I did not enjoy con law. I really disliked it, actually. And same for torts and Civ Pro. Just saying the word Civ Pro gives me like a little PTSD. But apart from that, so I knew I didn't want to be a litigator. So I went into big law after graduation. I went into corporate law kind of with an open mind. I ended up practicing in capital markets initially. Then I did some M&A work. I did a lot of venture work. And after a few years, I knew that I wanted to eventually specialize in capital markets. But I guess at that point, I was in mid-level and I was kind of thinking about the next step in my career. And I think at that point, like a lot of folks, I was looking for a little more career fulfillment on more of a personal level. And so I started to kind of look around and take stock of the landscape. At this point, I was very familiar with the SEC based on my career. And the more I thought about it, the more the SEC's mission really appealed to me on kind of a fundamental level. I'm sure like a lot of people, I have family members that are invested in the stock market that might rely on investments for retirement, for children's education, for a down payment on a house, etc. And so I do think that the SEC's mission is fundamentally important to the American economy. And so the opportunity to work for the SEC and in some small way kind of help us try to fulfill our mission was really deeply appealing to me. And then, as I mentioned off the top, I do enjoy practicing in capital markets. So for me, it was kind of the best of both worlds.
Nice. Thanks, Alan. Okay, Jess, how did you get here?
So after college, I went to work for a big four accounting firm for a few years. And then I went to a public company for another few years. And I guess after that, being exposed to the SEC from those two perspectives, the auditor and registrant perspective, I wanted to gain some additional, perspective from the regulator side of things at the SEC. So that's why I, initially started to pursue it. I also hoped that I would be able to add some value with that in my background of coming from both of those two worlds. And to be fair, I also had several friends that had joined the SEC ahead of me, and they had raved about what a great place it was to work. So that also, inspired me.
Great. So Jess, you are in the office of the chief accountant, but you started at the SEC in the disclosure program. So can you talk a little bit about kind of what made you want to apply to the office of the chief accountant? How did your work that you did in the disclosure program enhance your experience in the office of the chief accountant for the division? And what does your day look like on a daily basis? Or does it look different every day?
Okay, that's a lot of questions. So I did spend my first 10 years at the SEC in the disclosure review program. That experience really prepared me for my current role in a support office of the disclosure review program, because I was able to fully understand the review process, and I was able to see how the issues that ultimately come up to our office, are identified, and the beginning of the analysis starts. As Cicely mentioned earlier, the review program utilizes a team approach reviewing filings. That was a really good foundation for my current work, because not only did I need to, do my own research and analysis after identifying an issue, but it also taught me the importance of considering multiple views and also utilizing the support of the other team members, to come to the best conclusion. In the office of the chief accountant that I'm in, we are constantly collaborating within and outside of our office and assessing alternative solutions in order to address issues and provide guidance. And I guess I'll pause for a quick second and just kind of reiterate some of the things that Cicely already went over. So I'm in the division's office of the chief accountant, not to be confused with the standalone office of the chief accountant. As you can imagine, people do confuse it sometimes. That office is not in our division and is separate from us, but we do work very closely with them on accounting and disclosure issues. And so, our office supports the division in numerous ways, one being, assisting the disclosure review program with complex and accounting and financial reporting matters. So to flip back for a second, in the DRP, as it's abbreviated, I also got to work on different types of companies and also transactions, and that really helped me expand my technical skills and also my industry and market knowledge. And that just also working with the office of the chief accountant on a lot of those issues, got me very interested in it. Sorry. So another thing I wanted to mention is that, there are rotations that are often offered to the staff in the disclosure review program. And that's an opportunity to go work in another group or office for a short amount of time. That's actually how I initially got involved with our office. And that rotation was a really wonderful way to be able to assess whether I liked the work, whether it suited me, and of course, at the same time, I was gaining a ton of, technical knowledge and also just like new ways of thinking, whenever you get exposure to a different group. And then fortunately for me, towards the end of my rotation, a permanent position became available. And since I love the office so much, I applied and was able to stay. But to tell you how my kind of day-to-day works now, I guess to circle back to some of the other things that our office does, Cicely also had mentioned that, we provide interpretations and guidance on SEC rules and regulations that are related to accounting and financial reporting matters, also to companies and their advisors, not just internally to the disclosure review program. She also mentioned the financial reporting manual. My office maintains that document and updates it. And what it does is summarize financial reporting requirements and talks about how to apply them, if you're not familiar with it. That's something that we definitely spend time in our office on. We also respond to requests from companies and their advisors to waive or substitute required financial statements in their SEC filings. And also, as Cicely mentioned, we provide technical assistance to assist with the SEC's rulemaking agenda. We literally in one day, I could touch every single one of those work streams. So it is definitely not boring. And there's always something new and exciting to work on.
Great, thanks, Jess. Jennifer, so you are a legal branch chief in the disclosure program. Can you talk a little bit about what your day-to-day looks like?
Sure. So as part of basically the bread and butter of the attorneys in the disclosure review program, we review the filings, all the filings that come in. That could be an initial public offering. It could be any subsequent capital raising transactions or follow-on offerings. And then, of course, after the registrant enters the reporting system, they go public. They have to continue to provide information to the markets periodically. And so that's also information or filing documents that we review. So as part of my job as an attorney, I have to look at the filing and make sure I understand the transaction, the structure of the transaction, the terms of the transaction, ensure that they're in compliance with our rules and regulations. And then also, which is really interesting, depending on your industry office, you have to understand the business of the registrant. What exactly they do, what are their revenue streams, what's their financial condition, their liquidity, capital resources, and is that adequately disclosed in their documents so that investors can make informed investment decisions. So I think that's the bulk of the work of any attorney in the disclosure review program, and that's one of the things that I enjoy the most. It is always changing because all the transactions are different, whether it's different terms or a different structure or just the business itself of every company is different. So we're constantly seeing new things every single day. As the legal branch chief, I enjoy the job because I can lead a team of attorneys and I get to be involved in most of the conversations that have to do with any novel or complex issues that the attorneys are seeing in their separate filing reviews. And so I help guide them to do research and make sure that we can together through collaboration come to a conclusion as to the correct answer for the issues that are presented in the filing. I guess in our day-to-day work, we also have to communicate constantly with outside counsel, which is also part of what makes this job fun. Engaging in those conversations. We also work closely with some of the support offices. So, for example, sometimes with the Office of CFO/CA, if there are accounting issues, the Office of Mergers and Acquisitions, if we have any interesting issues that relate to a merger transaction, for example. So there's constant collaboration throughout the division. And we're always working in teams. So as a legal branch chief, I try to ensure that we're collaborating and sharing information, which I think is really important. That's sort of the tone throughout the division. And it's one of the things that I enjoy about the disclosure review program. And especially as a legal branch chief, I try my best to ensure that we have an inclusive environment and that diversity of opinions are welcomed, and that ensures that folks can they feel empowered to make contributions to the team. And so that's basically the day-to-day life of an attorney in the disclosure review program.
Great, thank you. Alan, so you are probably the most recent addition to the SEC and to CorpFin. Can you talk a little bit about kind of what the transition was like for you? I know that you came from a law firm first. So, what can someone who's new to the division expect those first year? What does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. To be totally honest, I was fairly nervous coming to the SEC for a variety of reasons, but I think maybe most importantly, in my most recent Big Law experience, I really enjoyed working with my team at the law firm. I liked working for the partners that I did most of my work for. I liked working with the other associates. I think we had a good relationship, good clients. It was a good place to kind of learn and develop. And I was somewhat nervous that coming to the SEC, it's like starting any new job. The people don't know me. Will people be as nice as they are at my current job? All the questions that I think anybody would have. So I was a bit nervous about that. I'm happy to report that my fears there were pretty much completely unfounded. The transition really was easy. I guess relatively easy. Intellectually, there were a few challenges. So most pertinently, on the capital markets side, when you're working for outside counsel on a filing, you're normally responding to comments. So once you've drafted the document and put all the work into the document, it's not your job to then go through the document and figure out what's wrong with it. You have submitted the document, so you kind of sit back, do the other items related to the deal, other deal documentation, and wait for the SEC to read the document and get back to you. So coming in on my first review, it was kind of one of those oh shoot moments where it's like, oh, I have to read the document and figure out what's wrong with it and figure out what we're going to comment and how we're going to comment. And so initially that was pretty challenging. I remember looking at my first filing and just kind of thinking, huh. Fortunately, there's a lot of support here. And after, I think this would apply for almost any level of attorney, to be honest. After you do it for a few months, you start to kind of get the hang of it. I think there's always opportunity to improve. I certainly wouldn't say that I'm the finished product as an attorney by any stretch. But I do think that while there will be challenges at first, people here are really supportive of that and will help you. And there have been cases, especially in my first couple filings, where I didn't understand something or I thought I drafted a brilliant comment. I remember as a non-accountant, I can remember the first time that I saw a going concern issue on a filing. Most of the clients I had worked with did not have going concern issues when I was in private practice. And the first time I saw that, I kind of thought, oh no, this is a massive issue. This should be on the cover page. And so I think it would be easy for an accountant or a more experienced attorney to kind of, write that off or make fun of you or whatever. But people here were very supportive, which I really appreciated and really helped me get up to speed.
Great, thanks, Alan. Yeah, I mean, we do, I think it's expected that there is a learning curve for everyone. Even if you have outside experience before you come in the door, there is always that transition. I know my background similarly. I'm actually a CPA. I started at a big four firm and then left to go do financial reporting for a company and help them go through their IPO process. So when I came to the SEC, I thought, okay, I've got this. Except for you see so much when you're here, and there's so many different types of transactions that you don't necessarily get to see in the type of work on the outside, that there is a learning curve. Fortunately, we do have a very robust training program for new hires that are coming in the door. And then I think our biggest resource is just each other, our ability to kind of build and learn those conversations about issues when you're, I guess I was going to say in a conference room, but I guess virtually discussing them, that is the best way to grow and see a number of different topic areas. Okay, easy question. Favorite thing about working here at the SEC? Jennifer.
Perfect. That is an easy question. I think from a substantive perspective, it's just that you're constantly learning. You're always seeing, like as you mentioned, different transactions, different terms in the transaction, different businesses. So you're always learning, and there's always an opportunity to find new issues to consider throughout the filing review. So that's, I think, from the substantive perspective. I think from maybe a more personal part, personal view, something that I really enjoy about the job is that it's really, there's a lot of collaboration. and a lot of sharing of information. I think everyone has an open door policy, so you can go to anyone to ask questions and to really brainstorm. So if you're someone that is intellectually curious and you want to be challenged, you definitely find opportunities here to keep learning and to engage in meaningful conversations with your peers and your colleagues.
Great. Jess, what about you? What's your favorite thing?
I think the favorite part of my job is the customer service aspect of it. And this is similar to things that have already been highlighted, but being able to work with so many different audiences, I just really enjoy that. Companies, accounting and law firms, the staff in the disclosure review program, other offices, other divisions. I find it very rewarding to be able to provide guidance and support like our office does. And what else? I also really enjoy the diversity of all of the things that we get to work on. I'm sure, as you guessed, when you listen to me rattle off that long list of, work streams in our office, just that there's always something different and new and so many opportunities for learning. So it's very exciting.
And what about you? What's your favorite thing?
Jennifer and Jessica both hit on the people aspect, which I would certainly echo, and I feel like that's been a recurring theme throughout. But I guess a little more specific to me, as I mentioned off the top, I'm an attorney in the Office of Life Sciences. So we see a lot of interesting companies, whether it's pharmas, biotechs, we have agricultural companies, industrial chemical companies. So we get all sorts of we're one industry office, but we get all sorts of businesses that come through. And so getting the opportunity to learn about those businesses through A, filings, and B, just following industry trade publications is kind of fulfilling. Obviously, we're working to be the best lawyers we can be, but kind of apart from that, it's rewarding to also get to learn about an industry or a certain sector of the economy. And so I wouldn't consider myself an expert in any of those industries by any stretch. But just learning about them can be pretty fun.
And I think I'm going to ask you another question, Alan. You don't get out that easy. Since you are newer here, are there some particular skill sets or soft skills, technical skills that you have found are really useful, or some things that people who might be interested in joining the SEC might seek to kind of better prepare themselves for an opportunity here?
Yeah, absolutely. On the technical side, and this might be true for any type of lawyer, I think it is especially true for securities lawyers, is just the ability to read, whether it's a regulation or a statute or guidance or a CNDI, read it really carefully, read every word of it. I don't know about other folks on the call. When I'm reading for pleasure, I can be a bit of a speed reader. And so sometimes it can be challenging to take a step back and say, no, I have to read this completely. So I know that attention to detail is cliched at this point. I think in securities law, it is paramount to being a good lawyer. I do not think you can be a good securities lawyer without that. Fortunately, that's something that can be developed, which is encouraging. On the softer side, I think, first of all, patience. Rome wasn't built in a day. Securities laws were not written in a day. Securities laws are always changing. I think especially as a junior person, but then maybe even as a mid-level or as you get more senior, but especially as a junior, it can be frustrating because you have this constellation of regulation out there. And even just trying to get a handle on everything that's out there can be kind of daunting. Like, oh, what's a CNDI? Oh, what's Reg SK? What's Reg SX? What's the difference? Is this a 33 Act or a 34 Act filing? Just that basic stuff when you're first starting out can be challenging. And just remember, you will not learn all of it in a day, a week, a month, a year. And more importantly, nobody expects you to. So just kind of having that positive attitude of saying, maybe I'll get a little bit better every day, I think is really important.
Great. Okay, Jennifer, I'm going to throw this one to you. One of the things that I think people are always considering when building their careers is how do you have a challenging and interesting career, and how do you balance that out with the things that you want out of life? So what are some of the things that you've been able to kind of do or take advantage of or think about as throughout your career here at the SEC in terms of maintaining that kind of balance?
That is a great question. I think one of the great things about the SEC is that, we work really hard. There is a lot of work, but there is also real work-life balance, which I appreciate. And for example, when I first started, at the SEC, especially coming from a Big Four accounting firm, I was surprised that I had time at night to do other things. And I decided, for example, to do my LLM in Securities and Financial Regulation. That was an opportunity that I was able to take full advantage of because I was here at the SEC. I think similarly, there are just a lot of benefits that are provided by the SEC that I've taken full advantage of. For example, for doing the LLM, the SEC offered tuition reimbursement program, which I used so that I could complete the LLM. There's similarly student loan repayment programs. So those are benefits that I definitely used at the beginning of my career. As I've, as time has passed, I've used many others, including the federal parental leave program, which I was very fortunate to be in this privileged position of working at the SEC to be able to take a reasonable amount of time for maternity leave, backup care, if you need one for an adult or a child during your work days. We have a daycare center facility at headquarters, which is great. So there's just a vast universe of benefits and flexibility, work schedule flexibilities as well. So I've changed my work schedule throughout my career, depending on my needs, my personal needs, and also the needs of my team. And those are all benefits that you don't get to enjoy in most places, and that really make a difference so that you can have work-life balance.
Great. Jess, I see you nodding through that. Did you have anything else to add there?
Just to reiterate, the flexibility for being able to determine your work hours and have that work around your personal circumstances, that's been really amazing. Having, the ability to work from home a few days a week after the first year has been a huge benefit. It cuts down on commuting time. I can, prepare dinner for my family instead of picking up takeout, more often, and I can have, easier access to my home. I can watch the bunnies in my backyard while I'm on a conference call, or some of the more mundane things like changing laundry in between meetings, So, I mean, those benefits are huge. And I also can't say enough great things about the availability of the daycare, the Bright Horizons daycare. It's so convenient by the office, and the care they give is exceptional. So, yep.
I'm going to pretend that you didn't say that it makes it easier to make food for the family, because I'm still struggling with the whole cooking thing. But as long as you don't tell anybody in my household, it's great. We're winding down on time, and I do want to give an opportunity possibly for questions. But I think one thing that just by the fact that we're kind of collaborating with OMWI on this effort, and kind of piggybacking off of Renee's remarks about the importance of diversity and inclusion, and just how that's kind of at the forefront, and especially in thinking about how we work together as teams. So how do you think about inclusion, and how do you think, what are some of the things in the way that you see it plays out here at the SEC?
I'll start with this one. I think there are a couple of ways. I think, like I said earlier, the tone throughout the division promotes inclusion and diversity of opinions, and folks feel empowered to share their opinions and their thoughts. More importantly, when I first started, I was surprised at the number of affinity groups at the SEC, and I've joined and I've been very active in many of them, including the HALO, which is our Hispanic and our Latino group. Which has been great not only for networking, but also just to share experiences and find support. We have a monthly cafecito, which is basically a coffee meeting. And it's great. I've met people throughout the organization, similarly with the Women's Committee. where we've done a lot of different events. They have a great mentoring program, and you're matched with someone, not necessarily in your own division, so you get to network and meet others. OMWI, the Office of Minority Women and Inclusion, participates in a lot of outreach events, and I've had the opportunity to participate in recruiting events at Hispanic associations, which has been very fulfilling from a personal standpoint, because I know that I didn't always see that sort of marketing and advertising myself. And similarly, just the numerous trainings to promote diversity and inclusion that are constantly being promoted and are shared with the staff. So it's definitely, it builds a community, a sense of community and of inclusion where you can feel welcomed, and you can be your genuine and authentic self.
Jessica, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to add that I've always felt very included and supported at the SEC. And, you know, most of my bosses have actually been women, including you, Cicely, at one point. And they've all been, you know, exceptional role models and mentors to me. And that's just been very meaningful to me in my experience.
Great. And Alan?
Yeah, I would echo what I think both Jennifer and Jessica said regarding an inclusive environment. It's really nice when you have maybe a disagreement or you think, you know, you prefer to go one way and somebody else would prefer to go the other, and nobody's saying, oh, well, I've been practicing for 10 more years than you, so my opinion wins, or I have this experience that you don't have, so my opinion wins. So that's really encouraging. I think throughout, at least in my experience, I felt like both myself and then other folks within my office and on my review teams, everybody has a say and nobody's opinion is being discounted just because they don't have as much practicing experience or they come from a different background. So that's been really refreshing and good to see.
Great, thank you. I think we have 3 minutes. Melvin, do you have some thoughts on if we should try to answer a couple of questions?
Yeah, I think there are two that could be very helpful to a large number of people who have asked similar questions. So the first one is coming to those that are recent graduates finishing law school in the last 6 months that might be studying for the bar. There are some opportunities for law clerks to join the organization. Can you speak more about how they would apply for those positions and if there are opportunities for them?
Yes, so I think for people who are just recent graduates for law school, they have their JD, but they're still going through the process of taking the bar exam and getting admitted to the bar. There are law clerk positions at the SK11 position, and so probably that would be the path that those individuals would take. And, you know, while we had a little, 2-line snippet of kind of what are some of the minimum requirements for the postings that we have currently available, if you actually open up the posting, you have to scroll through a whole long list of things or qualifications or things to think about. So, I mean, I would encourage, anyone who is interested, there is a path for entry-level positions, but make sure to go to USA Jobs and kind of see how you have to tick off some of those different requirements, even at the SK11 position.
Thanks so much, Cecily. One more question, and I think this might be the last one unless we're able to answer it real quick. So there are quite a few individuals that don't have law degrees or accounting degrees that might have specialties in information science, and then PhD students kind of working through some things that intersect with climate disclosure, elements of that. Are there fellowship opportunities or are there other opportunities for those that might not have a law degree or an accounting degree within the Division of Corporation Finance?
Sure. So yes, some things you'll actually see posted where it may be posted, like especially for leadership positions, it'll be open to attorneys, it'll be open to accountants, and it'll be open to analysts. And that could be people who have a different type of background besides a CPA or a JD. So you'll, again, just have to look at that posting specific. In addition, one of the bigger support to the disclosure program and then the division as a whole is through our management executives office. That is our knowledge management team. That is, they do all of our technology and our AI efforts. And so in instances, they may be looking for some different skill sets besides, the typical accountant or attorney backgrounds that you might see for some of the other mission work. So there are some opportunities. If you're not an accountant or if you're not JD, I would encourage, we will be looking for specialty type things. I know crypto has been at the front of mind for a lot of people. So, just go ahead and set up that search so you can be notified as we try to navigate kind of the changing in the markets and to be responsive for it. We're always looking and expanding upon kind of what we're looking for to kind of round out our staff here in the division.
Thank you so much. Well, it is 1:30, so we've hit time for the session. So I'll let you close it out, and I'll answer those that are interested in more questions directly in the chat.
I just want to thank the panelists for sharing their information. Thank you, Renee, for kicking this off and making this possible for us to, and supporting our ability to kind of, market and let people know what we do here in the Division of Corporation Finance. And thank you to Amway for helping to support and make this panel happen. I really appreciate it. And it has been great sharing our experiences with everyone. So thank you and have a good afternoon.
Thank you.